So we'll go ahead and get started here. Just a brief overview. I'm Justin Daughtry with CPU. This is the first installment of something we're trying to do for 2023, which is called CPU EDU. Going to be a series we do monthly. It'll be the last Thursday of every month. And the goal really is to pick topics that are important for IT, important for our business, important for your business as our clients. We will open at the end of this slideshow for questions and suggestions and things like that. We definitely appreciate the partnerships and relationships that we've established, and we think it's good to add value in education, and we will provide that where we can. This month's topic is about cybersecurity tips and trends. As we go through the presentation, there'll be some things that we bring up and we suggest, and just give some things that you can look out for and become aware of. We will get started here. So the first slide is how should employees watch for phishing? What is phishing? How do you prevent it? Things like that. So phishing is related to email, and is the fraudulent practice of sending email appearing to be from reputable companies in order to induce individuals to reveal personal information such as passwords and credit cards. I'm sure you've all seen it where you will receive an email that appears to be from a vendor or someone that you're familiar with or used to conducting business with, and it will ask for some information, whether that be credit cards or links to change payment processes, things like that. That is typically the way that they do that sort of phishing. A good example of it is this: say you get an email from PayPal. It arrives telling you that your account's been compromised and will be deactivated unless you confirm your credit card details. The link that they send tries to entice you to go to a fake PayPal website that looks very legitimate but is still false, and they want you to put your information in there so that they could use that. The best ways to prevent are really just to pay attention to the small details. And I know sometimes in the throes of a business day, when you're very busy, that can be difficult. So some of these things will help you just hone in on that. And the more you do it, the more it will become second nature. The number one thing that we found is the sender's address. You'll see where it says who it's from, and it may have a name you're familiar with typed as the name. But if you pay close attention to the address, you'll find some typos, there'll be misuse of capitalizations, and even sometimes words that are just unrecognizable. The best thing to do when you first notice something like that, or you have any suspicion, is to just stop at that point and just take a deeper look at everything, see if there's something that stands out to you as being incorrect. It's always best to err on the side of caution. And in the event that you do have that suspicion, you can definitely reach out to us and confirm or deny, what you may be experiencing. We can take a look at the email that you have, give you our advice and our opinion of whether you can disregard it or whether we think it may be legitimate. The second thing is links. So anytime you get a link to a site in an email and you have some suspicion, or even if you don't, it's always a good thing to not click the link, but manually go to that site that you're familiar with and log in, and then you can find out if it is legitimate, because the website that you will be going to versus the one you click in the link, it's legitimate. The next thing is pretty simple. If you get an email from a vendor or someone that you have some suspicion on, the best thing to do is pick up the telephone and call. You can speak to a human, you can speak to a person, you can verify that sender and the information. And obviously, the text is easy to falsify, but communication and talking with someone will definitely lead you to clarity there. There are also other things that you could do. There is no foolproof way to prevent that from happening, because, you enter email addresses or domains put out into the dark web, and they do get propagated from there and sent out. But you can have advanced email protection and monitoring and things like that, which some of you may already have. That can limit those exposures and those items that could occur. It's just best to stop, pay attention to details, and at any sign of suspicion, it's always better to err on the side of caution. Reach out to a coworker for cooperation, or reach out to us at CPU, and we can better advise you there. The next slide is pertaining to cybercrime in general. In 2022, large organizations reported an increase of nearly 10% in detections and blocks of all types of malicious activity. These large organizations are cyber fighting software companies, they are antivirus companies, and those numbers increased by 10% just over last year. And the reason that they did increase is because remote work has become more prominent. You know, when COVID occurred, a lot of businesses chose to go to a remote-only protocol, and some have continued that and even found it advantageous to do that even after COVID was gone and still do it to some capacity. But what remote working does is it relies on external web communication, and that just increases the traffic for hackers to comb through. So, you know, from a home out to the internet, to that provider, to the business that you're having a remote connectivity to, that internet down to those, it just increases the traffic for those hackers to try and find and use malicious intent. It does not really going to change. It will continue to increase for the foreseeable future, in my opinion. But more important than it increasing in threats is really the changes and adaptability of these threats. You know, 10 years ago, technology used to move very rapidly, even though it still does today. But, you know, you had to keep up with the latest models, the latest specifications, the latest softwares and things like that. But that's become even more prominent as things change fast in the cybersecurity world. So the way that you protected and blocked malicious threats yesterday may not be sufficient today. And, you know, that's where we come in. We are monitoring, we're keeping up with all the latest activity, all the latest protocols to prevent problems. And it's just important that even though cybersecurity threat is going to increase, as long as you're vigilant, keeping up with the changes and adapting to those changes, you will be in a better place. It's just one thing to note that it is not going away, and it becomes more of a focus for us as an IT provider and you as a business. And we're here to help with that and stay on top of that so you don't have to. The next slide, with cybersecurity being more prominent, there are regulations and compliancy. So what is the framework of cybersecurity? Framework of cybersecurity really just means what regulations and compliances, and those regulations dictate how and what we should be doing in order to be compliant. Some of those things are training your staff, just in general good practices, also training your staff depending on what type of regulations you may have to adhere to, what procedures you have in place for onboarding or offboarding employees or accessing particular data or printing things, your network usage and your firewall protocols. You know, are you preventing other countries through geo-IP filtering, which is something that we do? The workstation level of security. So are your users having secure passwords? Is the antivirus up to date? Is it monitored? You know, all of those things are typical leads into compliant regulations. I picked out two of the more popular compliances that we deal with. One is called NIST. It is a cybersecurity protocol that was made in response to an executive order that former President Obama put out. And the goal was to increase collaboration between public and private sector. What that means is just this is a critical framework to follow for companies who share logical or physical space with government entities in your organization. So, you know, there's a very large and robust, different facet and different types of businesses that this would adhere to, but any communication with the government entities is where this would come into play. If you're purchasing equipment from a government entity or buying from, or just sending or receiving data, NIST is a compliancy that you have to adhere to. It has a lot of different branches in it that it could apply to certain businesses, and we're here to be a resource for that if necessary, or if you know that that's a compliancy you need to adhere to. The other one that's pretty popular is HIPAA, and that really is just requires healthcare organizations to implement security and protection of patient privacy. Some of those things really revolve around patient information leak. As you can see on the slide, employee communication, whether they're talking to another employee, someone they know personally at home, or a friend, it's very important that they know HIPAA's regulations and that the patient information is sensitive and cannot be shared. Another thing is stolen items. So if you have a computer or phone and it gets stolen, was there data on it that was sensitive? And then do you have measures to wipe or at least track down those stolen items in case they do get stolen? Lack of training. So HIPAA requires that some people go through compliancy training where they actually send information for your people to train on and become aware of. Webinars such as today that we're doing, if information was shared on a slide or something for someone, a patient in the healthcare industry, that could be a problem. Or if you post something on social media that may directly or indirectly have some information there. Improper file and chart permissions and use of home and personal devices, and that goes back to remote. You want to make sure that if you do have someone working outside of the facility, that they're using business devices that are secured, that are monitored, and that are watched over. And when I mentioned HIPAA, it's definitely related specifically to healthcare organizations. But even if you're not regulated by HIPAA, a lot of their guidelines are just a good basis of security that most businesses will want to try and take advantage of. So that's why I try to mention that as well. And so with the regulations and compliances, a lot of those fall under, protecting your business, and they go hand in hand. And another way to protect your business is cyber insurance. We all have business insurance, but cyber insurance is a bit different. It generally covers your business's liability in the event of a data breach of your client information, things like social security numbers, credit card numbers, account numbers, health records, and things like that. It's there to protect you in case that does get leaked or happen. It could cost quite a bit of money to recover from one of those if you don't have cyber insurance. But, annual checks happen by us, your IT provider. Annual checks happen by the companies that supply the cyber insurance. And what they do is they supply a list of questions that make sure that you're staying in compliant with what they require as well. And it's important to answer those truthfully, answer those quickly, and have all the correct answers so that you can make sure that there really is no neglect that caused some of this leak that could then nullify your insurance. Two companies that we recommend currently for cyber insurance, it's Liberty and the Hartford. They obviously supply many different types of insurance, but they do have a branch that specifically covers cyber insurance. And all of the things that we discussed about phishing is a way to prevent email issues, being up to date with the cyber crime and keeping up with the changes and being adaptable, following the frameworks in cybersecurity, having all the protocols in place with your computers, your firewalls, your network, your routers, things like that. All of those kind of tie into making sure that you do have the proper check marks when cyber insurance is involved. And on to the last slide, which is really just the outro here. So this being the first educational moment that we've done, I didn't know exactly what to expect, but I knew I wanted to deliver some good information to provide some tips that you could use to get your brain going in a way where you think about these things because they are important. It's important to invest in your technology, obviously. It's important to invest in that cybersecurity, the data protection and recovery. And even if it's not a monetary investment, when I say invest, that's not what I mean. I mean invest time in being cautious, being educated, and being aware of what's going on so that we as your partner in IT and you as members or leaders of your company can make sure that we're on the same page and doing exactly what we need to protect. When I say protect, I always like to use this term. The goal is to protect yourself as the business leader. Your goal is to protect your employees, and the goal is to protect your clients. We partner with you to make sure that we are providing you all the solutions and all the information, and in this webinar, all the education to think about what needs to be done and to help you get there and ensure that all that is taken care of. Data protection, data recovery, cybersecurity, they're probably the most important things when it comes to IT because your data is very valuable. You can replace computers, you can replace printers, servers, and spend a little bit of money, but it's a drop in the bucket to what your data is worth. And just being educated on what to look out for, what you need is really important. And that's what we're trying to do, is just educate you, make you aware, and we're here to help any way we can. Any concerns, just let us know. We can work with you and provide the best care. Any feedback you have on the topics we've discussed, or future topics that you would like CPU to do in the future, we and I would greatly appreciate that. We want to make these valuable. We want to make these meaningful. We want to make these worth your time. So I'm definitely open to any of that. And this will be reoccurring, and we're open to everything and look forward to what we do monthly. And we appreciate you being a part of it.